Good morning, good afternoon, good evening all, it's Bear here. And I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel, A Box with No Lid. A channel I'm creating not just to bring the awareness around the lived reality of trauma and complex trauma and what it creates, removal trauma and adoption trauma. But I really want to bring forward what I've learned through my own personal experiences and my own personal journey and my many, many years as an advocate and as a practitioner with the simple hope that something you hear here not only is helpful in your own journey and creating the conversations we need to have, but I also hope to bring awareness and break things down that are often repressed, hidden, or buried, or only explained in complex ways in psychology jargon. To break things down into a day-to-day understanding so that it helps feed the conversations we need to have, as well as our own understanding so that we can empower ourselves to make the changes we wish and to be able to heal and move forward. Now, this video, firstly, I want to apologize for not uploading the last couple of weeks. I've been dealing with a virus and been coughing more than being able to speak. Hopefully, I can get through these videos without having another coughing fit. But I've also, in my own personal life, I want to bring up a little bit with the world of adoption and dates on calendars, because my own birth date is coming up. And as part of our neurological separation and that complexity of the fog and what creates this issue of being able to process at such a young age the experiences of being removed and that gap between placement and what happens during placement, how an infant or a young child is just expected to not remember, even though our nervous system does, the entire, every single moment of those experiences. A part of that, the part of that jar of inner turmoil, is our birthday. One of the key human celebrations, one of the most common parties you will see is a birthday party. But for an adoptee, it is, for the majority of us, it's the day we were removed, because we were removed at birth. For many of us, our birthday is not actually our birthday because they've changed our birth date as part of the separation from our biological records. They altered birth dates, sometimes by a few days, sometimes by a few weeks. But none of us, especially in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, 1970s, and even 80s, none of us really are sure that that is our actual birthday. But what it creates is an emotional minefield. I've mentioned it in a couple of other previous videos, fairly early on in this channel, but I want to look at it from the perspective that we've now developed through understanding the fog and this emotional gap, and understanding the difference between a visual trigger and an emotional one. When we look, whether we're part of somebody else's celebration or whether we're somewhere where we can witness, if we're out at night at a restaurant, somebody's having a party over there, or we're walking through a shopping center and there's a kid's birthday party happening in the restaurant we're walking past, we witness the emotions being experienced by those people or those children. And that is the trigger that reinforces the sealing of that jar that contains everything that happened from our conception to our placement, into several months, if not several years into our placement, to where our placement, whether adoption or long-term care, became a knowable parameter. It was a fixed way of being. We were not going to get moved off, or we understand enough to survive or function or prosper in that relationship. Everything in between those 2 points is contained within this jar. All these neurological responses, all these emotions and feelings and fears, triggers, and everything gets capped off with a very broad emotional trigger that will try to access it. And that's the difficult thing that I want to explain here. Like, I know from my own personal experiences, the amount of expectation for me to be able to emotionally respond to birthdays the way other people do has resulted in I prefer the day to be completely forgotten. I don't care if it's never acknowledged again, because it is such an emotional minefield. There is no joy in it for me. And I personally know so many adoptees in the same boat. We go through the motions. We're really good at faking these things as best we're able to. But those that are close to us recognize that, and then it hurts them because not because they want us to meet their expectations, because they care about us. And there's nothing that they can do to make us feel special on a day that really should be acknowledged the way everybody else's is. And it creates this emotional, minefield of complexity that feeds so much dread in the days and weeks coming up to it, that it only reinforces the need to seal that jar and keep it sealed. And when we get closer to these anniversaries, the need to, the jar becomes more and more present in our subconscious, to where we start, everywhere we go, there seems to be a freaking birthday party. There seems to be these triggers and these reminders, and we cannot talk about them with other people, as I said, because those that we're close to, we don't want to hurt them and make them feel bad because they can't make us feel special on that day. And we hate ourselves because we can't feel the way that we should be able to. And again, it feeds into this trying to make sense of a complicated mess that we have no solution or answer to. The whole question of why we were relinquished, why we were removed, why weren't we raised in our biological family. And none of the words, the cognitive answers, the things we've surmised, or some of the lines on some documents we may have found, answer that emotionally. It doesn't give solace. It helps us put another sticker on the lid of that jar, but it doesn't make the jar go away. How we work with this, I honestly don't know. Because I've tried so many different perspectives, and with some caring friends, we even just picked random dates and tried to create a separate day as separate celebrations. I've tried ignoring, I've tried explaining it, and all these things. It just creates this emotional turmoil even stronger. What I find works is focusing more on the emotional moment rather than the label it's given, and try to share some emotional connections around this time, even for short moments that are meaningful. And over time, hopefully, that will lead to a better place around this time of year when it comes up to that day. Trying to ignore it, trying to fake it, having a few too many drinks or whatever to be able to be part of it doesn't solve it. And being, coming from an adoption perspective, being around it and advocating it and spending, the better part of my adult life trying to understand how to heal it, I cannot honestly say that it can be healed. We can find great and good places to be. And a lot of that comes down to how close your adoption family was, how touchy-feely, and all those ideal connections that were created to help you move past that. But when you come from adoptions like mine, when you come from adoptions that are the more common, where there is this emotional separation between your adoptive family and you, it's learning to value those little emotional moments with people where there's joy, where there's happiness, where there's connection, where there's really good meaning, good positive interactions over everything else. Because those are the moments we need more of to be able to bridge past and build the resources needed to start to open that jar to be able to heal it. And we need lots of those moments. And we need to also understand how to have the difficult conversations with those that care about us, so that they don't feel bad that they cannot make us feel special on our birthdays or any day. And we don't feel bad because we make them feel bad because of a circumstance we had no say in and a childhood that came from it. We need to find ways of moving past and having those conversations to be able to move past that. And as I said, focus on those little moments of connection. And some of them can only be a few seconds, but it's enough. And it can be with a complete stranger, those moments of open acknowledgement that bring a smile, that bring joy. The more of those moments we have, the more resources we have to be able to start to tackle the jar of everything that happened from our conception to where our placement became known. I really hope you guys value and understand this. And I love your guys' comments and feedback. Please be mindful, please be safe, and I will see you all next time.